Hello and welcome. I'm Wise Old Tree, and this is a review of Dimension 20, Season 17, The Ravening War. Starting with an overview, The Ravening War is a live play D&D series produced by Dropout and released in summer of 2023. It's a 6-episode miniseries with Matthew Mercer as the guest GM, and the players are Lou Wilson, Brennan Lee Mulligan, Abriya Iyengar, Zach Oyama, and Anjali Bhamani. The Ravening War is set in the same setting as the Crown of Candy universe. And even though The Ravening War is a prequel story, I'd still recommend watching A Crown of Candy before this season, as some of the twists from the original would be spoiled here. Like A Crown of Candy, the setting is a political thriller in the style of Game of Thrones, with the characters all being food people belonging to their respective food faction nations. The players walk through important events of the Ravening War, a continent-wide war that ultimately sets the stage for what will be the events of A Crown of Candy. For my overall impressions, I'll start by saying that I do like how the series is set outside of the nation of Candia and gives insight and focus into the rest of the Calorum world. The players are a spread of nationalities all outside of Candia, and because of circumstances in the story, have come together for a unified cause. The story takes place over a very long conflict, so while it slows down for certain key moments, characters have downtime activities taking place over weeks or months, and important events of the larger conflict are often narrated with time jumps as the player characters are not and cannot be involved with everything happening across all nations all at the same time. Matthew Mercer is the GM for this season, and while he's famous for his role as GM of Critical Role, he's only appeared as a player before in Dimension 20, and this is the first chance I've got doing this series to talk about Matthew Mercer as a game master. It probably won't come as a surprise to say that I think he's quite good. He doesn't have the same level of frenetic energy that Brennan does as a GM, but that doesn't mean that Matthew Mercer is any less passionate. Considering the Calorum lore and universe is something made largely by Brennan, it's impressive how Matthew is able to faithfully portray the established information of the setting while also adding new elements that feel naturally emergent from this world. It's really fun to see Brennan surprised and impressed to learn things about a world that he himself created. However, there are some issues that I have with this season, and I think most of them stem from the same issue, the episode count. The Ravening War story is, like any good political thriller, pretty complicated, but with only 6 episodes, there isn't much time to tell that story. Political thrillers really need time for the setup of the world and the character and then how everything interacts with each other, but this miniseries doesn't have that kind of time. So characters, events, and relationships are introduced at a rapid pace starting episode 1, and narration is used to cover a lot of significant events instead of playing through them in a scene. Watching this season, I found myself getting lost frequently, having to re-listen to sections or read the wiki to understand what was happening. And that's something that hasn't happened to me for other seasons of Dimension 20. Overall, I think an 8 or 10 episode season would have granted more breathing room for the story to enjoy the scenery instead of the direct sprint towards the end that we kind of end up with this season. There's also the issue of this story being a prequel, which means the story has to respect certain boundaries to exist within the continuity of the series that comes before it. I don't think this ends up being a super big problem, but I do think it subtly constrains the player characters and the larger narrative in a number of small ways throughout the entire season. Brennan Lee Mulligan as Bishop Rathaniel Sharlock is impressive this season, and I really enjoy seeing Brennan play characters that can leverage his real-world intelligence and creativity. However, the standout character for me this season is Karna Solara, played by Abria Iyengar. Karna is a spy and an assassin, someone who keeps a pulse on the goings-on of the war, but is also able to redirect attention and focus when needed. She's brave and cool and insightful and at times frightening. Abria creates a character with multifaceted motivations and compelling interpersonal relationships, which is exactly the character I love to root for in a political thriller. As for a rating, I'm going to give Season 17 of Dimension 20, The Ravening War, a 3 out of 5. I did like this season more than A Crown of Candy, but like I said, I still had some issues with it. The players are good and Matthew Mercer is good, but the story feels overdense and rushed. I spent so much energy trying to follow the plot that I didn't really have time to just sit back and enjoy the show. Once I got there, the story is interesting, but having to do homework just to follow along really ended up dampening my enthusiasm for the season. If you liked A Crown of Candy and want more of the Calorum world, then The Ravening War provides that. Just keep in mind that this season does have a different style and presentation compared to the first one. All right, that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and see you next time for Season 18, Dungeons and Drag Queens.